Hey everyone, Chris Geo here. I've got something a little bit different for everybody, but it's something that's been on my mind and something that I want to just express out there. So I've been getting into VR lately, and this is a little different. It's kind of a tech review of a couple of these different devices. But I figured, you know what? Instead of putting together a video, let's do it live the way we always do. We will do a live show for everybody though who is looking for the regular Beyond the Veil content. But right now I have three different devices. One is the Samsung Gear VR. The other one is the HTC Vive, and the other one is the HP mixed reality headset. And if you're anything like me, you've spent so much time looking at all the different comparisons and saying, which one should I buy? Which one should I buy? If any of them, if you're looking to get into VR. So the first thing I did, which was the first introduction, was the Gear VR, which is a really, really cool device. You plug in a phone right over to the side like that, flip it in, and boom, you're ready to go if you have a compatible phone. You can get them for the iPhone, you can get them for several different phones, and I mean, these cost anywhere from $10 to $100. They're actually really, really, really cheap, but they're limited by your phone. Samsung seems to be a really, really, really good company, even though there is a lot of privacy concerns with their smart TVs and things like that. But you know, that's a whole nother thing in and of itself. But it's a pretty good, crisp experience to get you in the door of VR. The phone tends to overheat in this particular device, which is why we said, hey, you know what, if we want to spend some real time in the VR world, then we're going to have to look at something else to upgrade to. And so I was looking at Windows Mixed Reality and the HTC Vive. The reason I overlooked the Rift is because the Oculus Rift seems to be a sit-down type of experience, and I wanted the whole, experience where you're walking around your environment. So I picked up these two headsets here. The HTC Vive was the first thing that I picked up. Unbelievable, but there are some issues, and these are the issues that I wanted to talk about because I don't hear very many people talking about these issues. The second headset I picked up was the HP mixed reality headset. And this one's almost there, but it has some issues in and of itself. So the first thing about the HTC Vive. So the sorry, I'm just looking at something. Okay, so the HTC Vive, great headset, putting it on, really, really, really immersive experience. Setup was a bitch on this thing. This requires you to set up a unit, like a little box in one side of the room and another box on the other side of the room. Then each one of those needs a plug. And then you have to plug in a cable that goes from one side of your room all the way to the other. Luckily, we had a room that was tile, and we put a carpet over it, so we were able to hide the wire going there. But if not, you'll have to pull up the carpet and hide the wire, or do some funky stuff to hide all these wires. And then, really, this unit, I mean, when it's hooked up, because you have this long wire, which is split up. I actually have this here split up into three, and it's going into your computer with two different cables. And then you've got a couple of USB cables hanging out of your computer for your controllers to charge, or you can put them in the walls. And then that box right there also has another plug by itself. And then the laptop that we bought, which was a very, very high powered laptop, that has a plug that goes into the wall. So this thing looks like it's on freaking life support. It's got so many wires, and it's very strategic to hide the wires. But the good thing is that the motion tracking, because of the two boxes, is actually really good. And the motion tracking, for anybody that's not familiar, is your relationship in the VR realm and how your hands appear when you're holding the controller. So it's actually like tracking your controllers. The other cool thing I like about the Vive is the audio strap, the head strap here. So it's $100 extra though, which I think it should be included with the unit. We got a little bundle deal on Black Friday, and so we were able to get it. We got the unit and the headset and a $50 gift card and several free games for $599, which was the cheapest that we found it anywhere. So if I had paid 700 or 800, which I was actually thinking about before Black Friday, and that's what it would have cost, $699 for the unit and then $100 for the audio strap, I probably would be more disappointed than I am. However, after doing some research on the Vive, because of an experience that I had, I found that the Vive has several problems. The main problem that it has is the controllers. It seems like everybody talks about the controllers going out. And the controllers, first of all, they feel really good when you're playing a shooting game, for example. You really feel like you've got a gun in your hand. It's pretty incredible. I mean, you can go straight up like Neo from the Matrix when you're inside of one of these realms, just pop, 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 like that. And it really feels right. But they use a proprietary type of battery on the inside of these. And even if you tried to take it apart and replace the battery, it's so convoluted on the inside. I watched a video where they did this, that the only way to get one of these repaired is to send it back in for repairs. Now, this is a problem because many units have shipped out with bad batteries, including mine. After about 2 days of playing, one of my controllers stopped tracking right, and then it stopped charging completely. I went through some reset processes. I tried to mess with it, and customer service said, okay, well, go ahead and just send it back in. And I said, well, wait a minute. I just bought a brand new Vive. I don't want to send it back in and have a repaired controller. I want a new controller. This is where things went sour. There are major customer service issues with HTC. Nobody's talking about this, but the more that I speak to people, the more that they tell me they also had the same experience. For instance, I was just commenting on another YouTube channel, which prompted me to make this video. And I said, hey, how does the Samsung, the new Samsung VR headset compare to the Vive? And I said, I've been having some customer service issues with HTC, and I'm thinking about sending the Vive back. And the guy replied and said, I had the exact same issues, same customer service issues. And looking on Reddit, it's one customer service issue after another, after another, after another. So basically, it was like I was speaking to a robot. So let me back up for a second. The first thing that I did when I got the Vive and got it all set up is I went to this particular website here and I put in my redeem code for the free games. You would think that that's all that it takes, right? No. They send you another set of codes, another set of activation codes to your email. Well, when I signed up for this Vive.com or Viveport or whatever the website is, I signed in with my Facebook. And Facebook is using an email that is completely obscure that I never use, and it gets nothing but spam. And the reason I do that is for Facebook security. But I put in my regular email address. So I was looking for these codes and looking for these codes and looking for these codes, and I couldn't find them. So I contacted a customer service rep, and they said, okay, well, we'll look into it and we'll get back to you. Nobody ever got back to me. 3 days later, I wrote them again. And I said, hey, what's going on? Nobody's gotten back to me. And so it was a cycle like that until finally I said, you know what? Maybe they sent it to my Facebook email. And so I went to that email address, and sure enough, there were the codes right there. But it's just amazing that customer service wasn't able to, or tech support wasn't able to identify this problem and resolve it for me. So that was the first customer service issue I had with them. And I asked for a supervisor to call me back, and they called me back like 4 days later, and they had absolutely no idea what my concern was. So huge red flag. Second thing I noticed was when the controller went out. Again, it was like talking to a robot. They kept telling me, go to the Vive chat and put in a ticket there. And I did. And I would put in ticket after ticket after ticket. And finally, I got pissed off and I called HTC and I said, look, I need to talk to a live human being. And she said, no, well, that's a different department. Okay, well, this is HTC, right? And they said, no, we don't do Vive support. I'm like, no, this is HTC. I'm not talking about Vive. I'm talking about HTC. I've got a problem with HTC. I'm getting no resolution to the problem that I'm having here. And I just spent a ton of money on one of your systems. And I was actually pretty pissed off. So it was like talking to a robot. You have to use the chat. Okay, I've used the chat. That's not working. What's the next step? You need to use the chat. Okay, I've used the chat. That's not working. What's the next step? I went through this 6 times with this representative, and I had to ask her. I was like, am I speaking to a robot? No, you're not speaking to a robot. I'm a human being. Okay, well, if you're a human being, then what are you not getting about this? Okay, my controller's not working. I want a new controller. Your chat people are giving me a bunch of BS, and I need to have this problem resolved. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm returning this piece of shit, and I'm getting a Windows mixed reality because that's what I was looking at initially. So I go to Best Buy because I wanted a unit immediately. Even though I was looking at the Samsung because of the Gear VR experience, Samsung put out a mixed reality headset, and I know that this thing it's pretty good quality for what it is. And I figured, you know what, Samsung's going to put out a good quality thing. So I got the HP headset, and the HP headset, as soon as I put it on, first of all, it was extremely easy to set up. Like, I just plugged it in, Windows did the rest, and boom, that was it. Integrated right into Steam as well, and I was pretty happy about that. So I started playing some games. Oh, hold on, let me go to the controller first. So the controller, a little bit different. Where's my Vive controller? Okay, a little bit different than the Vive. The Vive feels a little bit heavier. The Windows doesn't quite feel the same, but what I like about this is if you have a problem with the batteries, you can just open up the case and replace the batteries. I went and bought some rechargeable batteries, 8 of them, so I've got 4 being charged and 4 in the unit, so I can always switch them out if I ever want to. And what I started doing with the VR is actually working out. I play a game called Audio Shield, and this thing is like it's an intense workout. And when you have the room scale, you don't even feel like you're working out, but you come out and you're sweating, and it's like you're tricking your body now into saying, okay, I'm going to work out, but I'm actually playing. So don't register this as a workout. Instead, register this as a game, but you get all the benefits of a workout while you're doing it. So that's one of the reasons why I'm really big into VR, because it's just a lot of fun. You know, I can see a lot of potential with this particular technology. So I like these controllers actually a little bit better than the Vive controllers. But the Vive controllers do feel a little more, a little better built. But the fact that you can't change the batteries or fix these at all whatsoever or anything like that, that is huge. So with this particular controller, you have one little extra thing, which is very close to the Oculus Rift, which is this little joystick here. And in the VR realm, you can actually change orientation without having to turn around, which really helps in some applications because you're pointed in one direction and you want the orientation to be in a different direction because you have maybe more space in your play area like that. And so you can use the joystick and just kind of move that around and recenter yourself. Whereas the Vive, you can't do that. And from what I understand, with the Windows Mixed Reality, you can also play Oculus Rift games better with this particular controller. So it's kind of like both the Oculus controller and the Vive controller all mixed into one. However, there is the downside to this. And I suspect that it's the same on the Samsung. I don't think that they've overcome this particular problem here. But let me talk about the HP first of all. So this particular unit has a field of vision of about 95 degrees, which if you're doing a side-by-side comparison with a Vive, if you've never used a Vive before, you may not notice this, but when you use the HP after you've been using the Vive, you notice your field of vision shrinks a little bit, which sucks because it takes away from the immersion. However, I did find that when I was up on very, very high places, like there's some VR experiences where you're like floating in space and there's no floor under you. With the Vive, my body like clenches up like, oh, there's no floor under me for a brief moment. The immersion wasn't so much with the HP, which I think was it really needs improvement, and the field of vision. The other thing that I noticed is the colors weren't as vibrant. I was playing a game called Audio Shield, as I said, and it's kind of it's a really good workout. It really is. So up on the screen, I've got Audio Shield here just so you can kind of get an idea. You've got 2 shields, you've got some music playing, and then with the beat of the music, it sends these balls of energy towards you, and you're supposed to use the appropriate shield to block those energy balls. And it's all, you know, in tune with the music and in beat and all that, so you're kind of moving around and you're doing all of that. So right now, that is my favorite game for the purposes of the reason why I'm using VR. But even playing that, I noticed not only was the field of view smaller, but the colors were not nearly as vibrant, which I was really, really disappointed because I think I actually told one of those reps at HTC, I said, look, Microsoft just released the mixed reality. You guys are no longer the big contenders here in the VR realm, and you really need to get your customer service issues up to par because this is complete and total bullshit. And when I tried this out, though, I was disappointed. The other thing is this particular headset and all mixed reality headsets, they have this feature that they flip up, so you don't actually have to take them off in order to see the outside world. However, what I noticed when I flipped it up, I would still have to readjust the head strap every single time. There's also another downfall to this too, is when you're playing the games, this part of it is supposed to be right up against your eyes, and it's not supposed to move even when you're moving because when it does, it creates blurriness in your field of vision. This was moving on me all over the place. There was no way that I could adjust it to get it to fit my head to where this is like kind of standing the way that it needs to be. So the gameplay was, and even 360-degree videos were still very, very blurry, and it was hard to find that sweet spot. See, there's a sweet spot in each one of these lenses where you see these kind of like distortions around the side, but if you're looking in the sweet spot of the lenses, you don't see the distortion. The sweet spot is much bigger in the Vive from what I can tell. Now, these use inferior lenses too. This uses an LED lens as opposed to what the Vive uses, which was really, 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 really disappointing. So the other major downfall of this device here is the fact that you have to plug in headphones. And it doesn't have the headphones attached to it the way that the audio strap does. So you put this on, you plug in headphones, and I like to use, these high quality broadcasting style headphones because they're just really, really clear sound. But I found that the cable, which is a huge freaking cable, as you can see here, this cable is dangling here as I'm playing. So I've got this on my head, the cable's dangling. It just wasn't really good. Now, finally, everybody's always, asking about the tracking on these particular devices. The one cool thing about the mixed reality is you don't have to set up these base stations. You don't have to set up any of that when you set this up. You just plug this in. And the way that this tracks is this has a series of cameras, one here and one here, and it's actually tracking your controllers as you are playing the game. The tracking is decent, but it was glitching out on me in several situations. So I was playing Space Pirate Trainer, for example, which is a shooting game. And you've got both of your guns like this, and you're kind of shooting all these little alien robots and things like that. And I noticed that the tracking was a little bit jittery. It was a little bit off than what the Vive was. But I noticed it the most when I was playing Rick and Morty, and I've got a little clip of what exactly I was doing here. It's not me playing, but just so you can kind of tell. So at this particular point in the Rick and Morty game, you're sitting there in front of this battery pack, and you're supposed to recharge this battery. And let's see if we can get to the point in the video. Yeah, here we go. So you've got this control panel in front of you. You pull it, and you're on a timer. And while you're on a timer, you've got all these different little levers lighting up, and you have to put the levers in the particular position. So you can see his lever lit up there. He needs to change that over to the red location, and then pull that lever down, and then pull that lever down, etc., etc. This guy doesn't seem like, well, yeah, okay, there you go. He's got the hang of it now. But you can see, and it's all timed. What I was finding was happening to me as I was playing was I was missing the levers because the tracking just wasn't picking it up properly. And with the Vive, I was hitting the levers every single time. So it was much, much, much more responsive with the Vive. And the problem with this is once the controller gets out of the field of motion, then it needs a split second or maybe even a whole second to reorient itself once it gets back in the views of the camera. Which for normal tracking, it's fine, but when you're playing games like this, it's and especially when you have to put your hands really low or even behind you or something like that. For instance, in Rick and Morty, you've got the Mr. Mises, and you throw it, and he mimics your movements. So there are some times when sometimes you have to reach behind you and actually pick something up from behind you because you're controlling the Mises on the other side of the screen. And so I haven't done that with this, but I can see how that would be problematic as well. So Windows is almost there. It is almost there, but it's not quite. It's actually really, really disappointing because I was hoping I could tell HTC to go fuck themselves, which I am telling HTC to go fuck themselves because customer service to me is huge and it's a lost art here in the United States. We used to have really good customer service. It used to be the customer's always right. Products are always going to be put out there great. And if there's an issue with a product, if somebody's selling junk, then you have some kind of recourse or you can get a refund or, they'll do something like that. I presume, and I haven't had any personal experience with this, but I'm willing to bet that if you got a headset shipped from the Microsoft store and one of the controllers wasn't working, rather than making you jump through a bunch of hoops, they would send you out a controller. I mean, I've got a $2,000 mixer right here from Personas, and I had a problem with this mixer, and they cross-shipped me a mixer. I gave them my credit card number. They shipped me out a mixer before I even shipped this one back when I had an issue with it. I had an issue with my Motu, which is a $1,200 device. Again, they cross-shipped me a new Motu, especially because I do a radio show, and I've got to have this thing, ready to go. This is a different beast here. I don't have to have the VR thing, but I just freaking spend the money on it. I want it to work. Simple as that. And if there's a problem, I want to know that I've spent my money in the right place, in a good customer service related place, which HTC is not. HTC is going to go down. Microsoft will take them down, no doubt about that, because of their customer service issues and because of the indifference towards their customers when they have an issue. So the Samsung mixed reality headset is something that I was looking at too. I'm going to wind up taking this thing back and I might order a Samsung. I actually called the Microsoft store and I said, hey guys, look, I want to try out one of the Samsungs. I've got a Vive. I'm thinking about sending the Vive back. Would it be okay if I purchased one to try out and send it back? They said, of course, we have a 30-day return policy, no questions asked. If you're not happy with it, just send it right back. And I said, okay, cool. I don't have an unlimited amount of funds where I can just buy all these different headsets and then just throw them in the closet and just leave them there. I've got to find one that works and one that works right. So I'm thinking about ordering the Samsung and having that sent out to give that a comparison because the Vive, because of Amazon, they have a return policy still. But I brought this issue with the controller to Amazon, and Amazon said, hey, don't worry about it. We'll ship you out an entirely new unit. And I'm like, well, I don't need a new unit. I only need one new controller. They're still shipping me out a new unit anyway it goes, but that seems like a huge waste. Like, that's a waste of money right there, okay? You don't want to send out one controller. I'm talking to HTC here. You don't want to send out one controller because it's broken, but you want to send out a whole new freaking system? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. There should be some customer service rules here that your company implements to take care of customers, especially when you have a consistent problem. It's consistent. I mean, look on Reddit, look on YouTube, look on other places. It's a consistent problem with these batteries going out and the fact that they put in these proprietary batteries that's impossible to find means that if you have a problem with your controller, you either have to pay $130 for a new one, which is the price on Amazon, or you have to send it back and be without your controller for 10 days. And that's what they say. They say, oh, we'll have it back to you in 8 days. But you go to Reddit and you read, it takes 3, 4, 5 weeks. And it's like, when you've made a big investment like this, you want it to work. Simple as that. If it was any other product, I would take it back to the store immediately and I would buy something else. The problem is that in order to get the best VR experience, if you can get a working unit, the HTC Vive, unfortunately, is the way to go. Unless the Samsung Samsung comes out and does something completely different. I feel that the first generation of Windows mixed reality headsets have these flaws. I think they're going to fix them in the second, but I think it's important to let Microsoft know, especially if you've tried one of these, that this design sucks. It's just terrible. It bounces around on your head, etc., etc. And it's just not really good for a good VR experience. If you're working and that's one thing, because what's really cool about this in a work type of environment. So I've got 3 monitors right here in front of me, plus another reference monitor for Shuri over there. So I've got 4 huge 23-inch monitors in front of me right now. If I was using it just for work instead of broadcasting, I could put on one of these headsets. And then when you put on one of these headsets, then you can make literally as many monitors as you want in front of you. So the possibilities with this is pretty cool when it comes to work applications. And then you have like 3D modeling and things like that, where you go into the VR realm and you're actually creating 3D models of things. And that can be imported into different 3D modeling editors. So people that are making 3D and 2D YouTube videos, for example, like Dark Matter 2525, one of my favorite. I don't know exactly what he uses, but he can create these kind of things in the VR realm and then bring them into his editing process and or editing program, and then start using these models that he's created inside of the VR realm, which I think is incredible. I see a lot of really big potential for this type of technology in the future. Now, big caveat there, a lot of the stuff that we talk about is anti-AI here on Beyond the Veil, so I'm not veering away from that whatsoever. I'm just looking at the technology for what it is. I'm not looking at the intent of the people who are creating the technology or the spirit of mankind that will inevitably turn this thing into a weapon, which I'm sure it will happen sooner than later. I'm just looking at the technology without any intention behind it, and the technology is actually pretty cool. Some of the things that Windows wants to do is you put on a headset and then you can actually meet with several people, talk face to face with them. Everybody's in the virtual world speaking with each other one-on-one. Another thing that they wanted to do with this, but they haven't, is mixed reality. So I put on the headset, and on the wall behind me, for example, I see all these paintings that I've put up in the VR realm that you can only see with this. Or I want to redecorate this room and it's a blank room. I put on the VR headset and then I can actually start putting different pieces of furniture in the room and rearranging them and saying, okay, I really like this room, so the way that everything is set up, cool, order now, and it'll all go to Amazon, and Amazon will deliver everything that I've put into this room, and I can actually see what this room is going to look like. So there's a lot of really, really cool potential for this type of technology. For gaming, though, definitely the HTC Vive is the best one right now. And Bill Gates, listen to this, okay? The HTC Vive is the best one. The customer service is shit, okay? This is an opportunity for you to come in and completely take it out, but you've got to change this. You can't have the monitor bouncing around when you're bouncing around in a stand-up and room scale type of experience. So, on that note, I guess that is it. I think I've ranted enough. And just to recap, if you want a really cool out-of-the-box VR experience, grab one of these. $20 to $100. You put your smartphone in. If you want a more upgraded experience, this is good. If you want the ultimate creme de la creme, get this, but be prepared for customer service issues, indifference towards the customers, and faulty controllers. It is what it is, but there's an opportunity in the market right now to come in and give consumers something that they actually to fill the gap. That's a good, to fill the gap, because people are dropping the ball, and it's like, you shouldn't release something if it's not going to work, and if it doesn't work and you release it, you should have ways to fix it. And ultimately, it would be great to take off the back of the Vive controller and replace the batteries. I think that would take care of 99% of the issues out there. And that's that. So we'll see you tonight with our regular show. And thank you for checking this out. And I hope that this video helps to contribute out there to all of the reviews and to help people decide on what to get when they're looking at Windows Mixed Reality versus HTC and versus all these different things. Because this is a new technology at the end of the day. And it's still in the infantile state, and it's pretty dangerous because the human consciousness can't handle something like this. It will turn into tyranny. Don't get me wrong. There will be a matrix here, and we'll be injecting ourselves into another matrix. But right now, it's kind of cool to fully understand the technology. So love you. We'll see you tonight with our regular presentation of Beyond the Veil.